All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, it's been less than 2 years since Steve Cohen assumed his role as the majority owner of the New York Mets. And just as the hedge funder who went on to build a $16 billion net worth and mainly from his empire as a in the business world, he has been hard at work in the attempts to turn around a franchise that has been known for losing as well as its blunders. Now, the Mets went 77 and 85 last year in Cohen's first year as the team's owner. But things changed, and they have changed drastically this year due to the fact that Cohen really, for the first time last year, got a full off season to get things in order, get his people in there, you name it. And the Mets are reaping those rewards. We saw the Cohen bring back Sandy Alderson to be the president of baseball operations. Of course, Sandy Alderson is set to step down soon, but also getting in Billy Epler as a team's general manager, bringing in an experienced and veteran manager who knows how to win in Buck Showalter. Also, Cohen showing a willingness to spend money, but also spend money on the right people, going out there and getting the deal to get Max Scherzer, bringing in guys like Mark Canha, Eddie Escobar, Starling Marte, veteran guys that can contribute for the Mets team, changing the culture in the locker room, changing the culture around the organization. A lot of, it's a sum of little things, things like Old Timers Day, retiring the jersey of Keith Hernandez and Willie Mays. And just, it's a different feel for this organization. And, it starts at the top. And Cohen definitely deserves credit for that. Now, the Mets have been in first place for the majority of this year. And by them going to the playoffs because they've now clinched a berth, they're out to show that it's not a fluke. And then also on top of that, and I can't harp on this enough, it's a different vibe around this team. Yes, the Mets are winning, but you feel like the locker room is connected. You feel like you have guys that have bought into what Showalter is selling. And then on top of that, you feel like Cohen is really changing the environment from within. And that is the most important thing when you're all about changing a culture, and Cohen is doing it. Now, the Mets just clinched a playoff berth this past Monday. They took 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee against the Brewers, a Brewers team that they could possibly face in the postseason. And, the Mets, they went out there, they celebrated Monday night. They came back, they got off to a slow start on Tuesday. They had to come back victory. And then, of course, they got shut out today as they're on en route to Oakland for a 3-game set with the A's. But this team is still on pace to win 100 games for the first time since 1988. And even with that, they still might not win the division just due to the fact that the Atlanta Braves are right there. And neither one of these teams is really relenting, so to speak. Basically, the Braves keep winning, the Mets keep winning. The Braves lost today to the Washington Nationals. The Mets lost to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Mets have a 1-game lead, a very slim lead, obviously. But, here nor there, this team, regardless if they win the division or they get the wild card, they get a wild card spot, they still have the potential to be a very formidable team in the postseason. But getting back to Cohen, the togetherness and the camaraderie that you see from this Mets organization, this is something that has not always been in place under previous ownership. And again, I can't harp on this enough, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. Please forgive me if I do, but it's a culture change. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others, but you can see this Cohen impact on this team in a very brief period of time. And like I've always said, history tends to repeat itself. And you go back about 50 years ago when the late George Steinbrenner purchased the New York Yankees, and the Yankees were a dormant franchise at the time. And I'm not saying that the Mets are going to turn the corner and go on a Yankee like tear, but it didn't take George that long to be acknowledged as the boss, and it didn't take Steinbrenner that long to turn around the fortunes of the Yankees. Bought the team in '73, By 76, they won the American League pennant. And then after that, the year after that, they went to the World Series. And from 1977 to 1981, the Yankees were in the World Series three times and they won a pair of championships. So, what I'm saying is, it's all about changing things. And this is what Steve Cohen is doing. And, this is the fruit of his labor, if you will. Accountability within this organization. This is something that has not always been there for the Mets, but you see it now, guys buying in and wanting to win. And that is the biggest thing. It's a different vibe around this team. Steve Cohen was right there to celebrate with his team on Monday night, and deservedly so, as he is an owner that wants to win and he also expects success. And when you peel back the surface for professional sports, regardless of what league that we're talking about, you don't have too many owners that are really committed to winning. A lot of them are just committed to making money. You have a very small group of owners across the board that are committed to winning. Cohen is one of those guys. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going out there and saying, okay, the Mets are about to win a World Series next month. Get your plans for a ticker tape parade down Broadway. Absolutely not. But the thing is, it's all about, and I can't harp on this enough, changing the culture, changing the vibe, changing the aspect. And you see it in this team. Yes, they celebrated, but they still know that there's work ahead of them as far as possibly winning the division, and most importantly, regardless if you win the division or get into the postseason as a wild card, surviving and advancing to each round. So, this is a start and this is a stepping stone. And now what the Mets want to try to find a way to do, obviously make some noise and make a World Series run next month, but also be a consistent playoff team. The Mets throughout their history have never made the postseason 3 years in a row, and they've never won the National League East in consecutive divisions, so consecutive years, excuse me. So these are things that they are definitely looking to improve, and you feel that vibe for Cohen. Obviously, there's still a work in progress as far as removing themselves from everything that was the Wilpons, but nonetheless, it's all about, not, I wouldn't say rewriting history, but making your own history as an organization. And I think this is what the Mets are looking to do under Cohen, and he's building this team and he's building this organization in his vision. And that is something, that's a word that I've said a lot on this podcast, not trying to sound like a broken record, but it is an organization. It's not just a team, because when you're building something and you're trying to change that culture, it starts from the top, and you see the trickle down effect in this organization under Cohen. And for the Mets, they are hopeful that this is just the dawn of bigger and brighter things on the horizon for this franchise. So the Mets have been one of the better teams in baseball all season long. Getting to the postseason obviously was a part of that. They still have plenty of work ahead of them. I still say that series next week, that three-game series in Atlanta, is going to go a very long way in determining the division winner. And I think it's going to be all hands on deck for both teams. But nonetheless, the loser knows obviously they're going to be the first wild card. They're well ahead of the rest of the competition in that category. But regardless, they could still do some damage. But nonetheless, for the Mets, this is a building block for your organization. And let's see if you as a whole can take the next step. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.